It's Monday, the 1st of September. Look at that, the beginning of another month. And happy Labor Day to those of you in the U.S. and Canada. Hopefully you're having a relaxing day completely devoid of laboring. Welcome to the President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. And, congratulations, by the way, to Ole Miss for a fantastic opening game for their season against Georgia State. Well done. All right, let's get briefed. First up, during the 12-day war, Israel managed to eliminate some of Iran's most heavily guarded leaders. A new report reveals a surprising weakness that opened the door to those operations. We'll have those details. Later in the show, a murder mystery in Ukraine. A top politician is gunned down in broad daylight, and the assassin may have been hiding in plain sight. Plus, the U.S. takes an unprecedented step, blocking Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and numerous Palestinian officials from attending the upcoming UN General Assembly in New York. Well, I suppose they could get around that problem by relocating the UN to Switzerland. And in today's Back of the Brief, a U.S. appeals court delivers a blow to the Trump administration's trade agenda, ruling that most of his tariffs are illegal. I honestly had no idea that an appeals court could set or determine U.S. foreign trade policy. But first, today's PDB Spotlight. One of the more astounding results of the 12-day war against Iran was the Israeli military and intelligence service's ability to take out numerous high-ranking Iranian leaders, military commanders, nuclear scientists, and those responsible for protecting the regime's top decision-makers. Well, this weekend, the New York Times revealed just how Israel did it. The operational weakness that allowed for those targeted operations? The bodyguards. The operation had a dramatic code name, Red Wedding. If you're familiar with the HBO show Game of Thrones, well, you know the reference, but for those of you who don't, the Red Wedding was one of the most infamous betrayals in that series. A massacre carried out in what was supposed to be a safe gathering. The Israelis clearly chose the name on purpose. They intended to wipe out as many of Iran's top figures as possible in one decisive stroke, assuming that they'd never have another chance to hit them that way again. So here's how it reportedly went down. First off, Iran's senior officials are a very cautious group, and with good cause, considering just how good Israel's intelligence apparatus is. They don't carry cell phones. They don't announce their movements. They know full well that Israel has some of the finer intelligence capabilities on the planet and that a single slip could get them targeted. However, their bodyguards, well, that's another story. The men assigned to protect Iran's elite were often less disciplined. They carried their phones. They sent messages. Some even posted on social media. Really? And Israel was watching. For years, Israeli intelligence had been quietly hacking into those phones, mapping routines, tracing travel patterns, and using that digital trail to build a target list. By the time the war broke out in June, the IDF's, quote, decapitation team, as they called it, had already narrowed down hundreds of potential Iranian nuclear scientists and commanders to a core list of about 20 to 25. The plan was brutal and efficient. Hit them all at once before they realized what was happening. And, well, it worked. On the very first day of the war, Israeli jets killed multiple top commanders and scientists, guided not by the phones of the targets themselves, but by the phones of the men standing outside their doors. Among the dead, Brigadier General Amir Ali Hajizadeh, the head of the Revolutionary Guard's Aerospace Force, one of the most senior officers in the country. Alongside him, more than 30 other senior commanders and nuclear experts were eliminated in just days. Perhaps the most dramatic moment came on the 16th of June. Deep under a mountain slope outside Tehran, Iran's Supreme National Security Council met in a bunker, desperate to plot a path forward. The attendees were some of the heaviest hitters in the regime: the president, the speaker of the parliament, the head of the judiciary, the ministers of defense, intelligence, and interior. Well, they took no phones, they used separate cars, and the meeting was classified at the highest level. And yet, minutes after the session began, Israeli jets dropped 6 bombs directly on the bunker entrances, sealing off the exits and collapsing the building around them. Now, by sheer luck, or perhaps by the structural strength of the bunker itself, none of the leaders inside were killed. They clawed their way out through debris and dust, some injured but alive. When they emerged, they found the bodies of their guards, and that was the key. Israeli intelligence hadn't followed the officials, it had followed the guards waiting outside. Their phones had betrayed the entire meeting. In the days that followed, Iranian leaders scrambled to explain the scale of the breach. They quietly arrested dozens of officials and security personnel. One nuclear scientist was executed on charges of spying for Israel. The Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, was thrown into chaos, their elite Ansar al-Mahdi protection unit exposed as sloppy and careless and compromised. Israel, meanwhile, neither confirmed nor denied its involvement. But Israeli officials told reporters that this was precisely the point of Operation Red Wedding, to show that no matter how deep underground Iran's leaders thought they were, no matter how many layers of security they built, Israel could still reach them. The broader message? Well, in a decades-long shadow war between Israel and Iran, Israel currently has the upper hand. For years, sabotage of enrichment facilities and mysterious explosions slowed Iran's nuclear work, but not enough. So Israel shifted focus to the people, the scientists and generals, the decision-makers. For Iran, the implications have been massive. Their intelligence minister admitted that infiltration has reached the highest levels of government. Security protocols have been rewritten. Smartphones are now banned for guards as well as commanders. Walkie-talkies only. But even so, officials admit they're still chasing shadows. Operation Red Wedding will be remembered as one of Israel's most audacious intelligence successes, and for Iran's leadership, it will serve as a permanent reminder. In the digital age, the bodyguard at the door might be more dangerous than the enemy over the horizon. All right, coming up next, a brazen assassination shocks Ukraine, and Washington shuts the door on Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and a host of Palestinian personnel ahead of the UN General Assembly meetings in New York. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Well, you've probably noticed Labor Day it's here. And Labor Day is that one American holiday where we celebrate hard work by not working, not laboring. And while no one's quite sure what we're supposed to be doing on Labor Day, grilling or resting or shopping for mattresses, we do know this. Tri-Tails Beef is giving away a free prime ribeye when you order either their Freedom Box or the Pitmaster Grill Out Pro now through, today, the 1st of September. Tri-Tails is a fifth-generation Texas ranch, a great operation. It's real people, real cattle, no corporations, no fluff, just pasture-raised, grain-finished, dry-aged beef, right? That'll make your Labor Day grill the most American thing since pickup trucks and porch flags. One heads up, though, no shipping today on the 1st or on the 2nd of September because, ranchers also need a little time off. So head to trybeef.com. That's trybeef.com and grab your box. You can even get the special PDB Mike Baker box. That's right. It's chock full of my favorite steaks. And you know you're a carnivore when you get a box of steaks named after you. So this Labor Day, don't settle for the shrink-wrapped stuff from the mega stores, right? Get the real steaks. Get the real beef, the real meat, straight from Tri-Tails Ranch to your doorstep. Welcome back to the PDB. Another high-profile Ukrainian figure has been assassinated. Andriy Parubiy, the ex-Speaker of Parliament and the defining face of the Maidan protests, was gunned down in Lviv on Saturday, fueling suspicions, of course, of a Russian hit. According to prosecutors, the 54-year-old politician, who also once served as Secretary of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, was murdered in broad daylight by a gunman disguised as a courier on an e-bike. The assassin blended into the western Ukrainian city like any other delivery rider before pulling out a firearm and firing, striking Parubiy at close range before vanishing into the busy streets. Ukraine's Prosecutor General's office reported, quote, an unidentified man fired several shots at the politician, killing Andriy Parubiy on the spot. As of now, authorities have launched a murder probe, but no motive has been officially suggested. Ukrainian President Zelensky denounced the killing as a, quote, horrific murder, vowing that, quote, all necessary forces and means would be deployed to hunt down the perpetrator. Former President Petro Poroshenko went further, calling it, quote, a shot fired at the heart of Ukraine, and praising Parubiy as, quote, a great man and a true friend. As some of our viewers may know, Parubiy's political career was deeply entwined with Ukraine's westward turn. He first rose to prominence during the 2004 Orange Revolution, when protesters challenged election fraud engineered by pro-Russian elites to install a Kremlin-backed candidate in the country. Nearly a decade later, Parubi emerged as one of the central organizers of the 2013 to 2014 Maidan Uprising that toppled pro-Moscow President Viktor Yanukovych after his decision to abandon an EU trade pact in favor of closer ties with Russia. Little wonder, then, that suspicion of his murder quickly shifted toward Moscow, of course. One Ukrainian lawmaker labeled the assassination as, quote, terrorism, pointing to a broader pattern of targeted killings since Russia's 2022 invasion. Just last month, as we reported here on the PDB, a senior Ukrainian intelligence officer, Colonel Ivan Voronich, was also killed in a daylight ambush, this time in Kyiv, an operation Ukraine later blamed on Russian agents. The Kremlin-backed assassination duo was tracked by Ukraine's intelligence service, the SBU, later resulting in their deaths. Kyiv and Moscow have long accused each other of waging a covert war of spies and assassins, one that runs parallel to the conventional battlefield where targeted hits have become commonplace. The timing of Parubi's death only magnified the shock. He was cut down just as European foreign ministers convened in Copenhagen to weigh further pressure on Moscow. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas told reporters that Russia was, quote, clearly not preparing for peace. Well, there's a statement of the obvious, citing ongoing missile and drone attacks. Yet the ministers stopped short of imposing fresh sanctions in the meeting. Okay, turning to the U.S. The State Department has barred Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas from this month's UN General Assembly, revoking visas for him and dozens of his officials in a move that underscores Washington's red line on Palestinian statehood. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the decision last week, charging Abbas and his leadership with undermining peace efforts by chasing, quote, the unilateral recognition of a conjectural Palestinian state, end quote. Does anybody know what that means? Rubio insists the ban is rooted in United States law, requiring that the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, and Palestinian Authority, the PA, to renounce terrorism and strip radical incitement from their education system before they can be treated as a legitimate partner for peace. A State Department official confirmed the restrictions apply to about 80 PLO and PA figures. Jerusalem wasted no time applauding the move. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar hailed the decision as perfectly aligned with Prime Minister Netanyahu's rejection of a two-state solution, which he's repeatedly dismissed as a reward for, quote, Hamas's monstrous terrorism. For Washington, it's a clear break from precedent, throwing its weight squarely behind Israel while cutting off Abbas's bid for symbolic recognition on the world stage. Under the UN headquarters agreement, the U.S. is generally expected to grant entry to all officials attending the world body, quote, irrespective of the relations between their governments and Washington. Palestinian representatives stationed at the UN mission in New York will still be permitted to attend under that framework, but the broader ban cuts off Abbas from the platform he's long used to rally for international sympathy. A UN spokesman said the matter would be raised with the State Department this week, stressing that, quote, all member states and permanent observers must be represented, end quote. Abbas's office blasted the ban as, quote, astonishing, claiming it violated both international law and the headquarters agreement. The reversal came just days after Palestine's UN envoy declared Abbas would personally attend the gathering of heads of state, plans now upended, of course, by Washington's move. For Abbas, who leads both the PLO and the PA, the slight is significant. Since 1974, the PLO has held the UN's mantle as the, quote, sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, and in 2012, Palestine's status was elevated to that of a non-member observer state. But recognition has never translated into governance. Hamas still rules Gaza. Abbas's security grip on the West Bank is shaky at best, and borders remain undefined. As we've been tracking, France, backed by the UK, Canada, and Australia, is leading a push to formally recognize Palestine at the 9th of September General Assembly session. But with Hamas's entrenchment in the enclave, recognition would be a little more than symbolic, more political theater, performative art, than practical change on the ground. By framing the ban around terrorism and incitement, Washington is sending a clear signal. Until Palestinian leaders confront their own dysfunction and renounce Hamas outright, they can't expect legitimacy from the U.S. Okay, coming up next in the back of the brief, a U.S. appeals court strikes down most of President Trump's tariffs, dealing a major blow to his trade agenda, at least until the decision is overturned by the Supreme Court. More on that story when we come back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, you've heard me talk about the great company Jacked Up Fitness and their amazing all-in-one home gym, right? For home fitness, it's a complete game changer. Well, Don and his terrific team at Jacked Up Fitness, they also know that many people are short on time and also short on money, but still want to get fit, right? So now, well, get this. You can start your fitness journey for under $60 and in just 6 minutes each day. Think about that. And for those of you of a certain age, well, stand by for a blast from the past. Because, introducing the all-new Shake Weight by Jacked Up Fitness. That's right. 15 years ago, the original Shake Weight shook the world. And now the fitness legend returns. Bigger, better, and built to perform. Why now? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because science has finally caught up with the importance of explosive power and fast-twitch muscle training. And that's something that the Shake Weight delivers in a compact, powerful way for beginners, for heavy lifters, and for serious athletes alike. The spring-loaded weights on each end send shock waves of energy throughout your whole upper body, forcing your muscles to contract up to 240 times per minute. Beginners can tone and tighten their arms and their shoulders and chest. Lifters can prime their upper bodies in between sets and get that final burn, while athletes can sharpen reaction times and build explosive power for that competitive edge. Look, the Shake Weight is no joke. It's serious training made simple. So if you're looking for a fun way to jumpstart or supercharge your fitness routine, get the all-new Shake Weight by Jacked Up Fitness. Just go to jackedupshakeweight.com. That's jackedupshakeweight.com. In today's Back of the Brief, a divided U.S. appeals court delivered a partisan blow to President Trump's signature trade weapon, ruling that most of his tariffs are illegal. In a 7-4 decision, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington ruled that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, does it have an acronym? You bet it does. It's IEEPA. In other words, IEEPA. That's the acronym, IEEPA, does not authorize the president to slap on tariffs. The majority opinion conceded that the statute grants, quote, significant authority to the commander-in-chief during a declared emergency, but stressed it does not, quote, explicitly include the power to impose tariffs, duties, or the like, or the power to tax. The judges stressed it seemed, quote, unlikely that Congress intended to grant the president unlimited authority to impose tariffs. The ruling took direct aim at Trump's reciprocal tariffs unveiled in April and his February levies on China, Canada, and Mexico. Trump blasted the ruling, there's a shock, as the product of a, quote, highly partisan court. On Truth Social, he posted a warning, writing, quote, if these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. At the same time, he exuded confidence that a potential Supreme Court ruling will backstop his program. And for now, the reality is simple. Trump is still winning, essentially, in practice. The tariffs remain in force through the 14th of October, while his administration drafts its appeal. As we've been tracking, Trump broke new ground as the first president to wield IEEPA for tariffs, stretching its reach beyond sanctioning adversaries or freezing assets. He declared a national emergency in April, citing America's ballooning trade deficit as a threat to U.S. manufacturing and military readiness. In February, he justified levies against Beijing, Ottawa, and Mexico City on the grounds that they were, quote, not doing enough to choke off fentanyl flooding across U.S. borders. His Justice Department insists the statute's emergency provisions, which allow a president to, quote, regulate or block imports entirely, encompass tariffs. It's worth pointing out that the decision does not touch tariffs imposed under other legal authorities, such as Trump's steel and aluminum duties. Those remain intact, preserving essentially the backbone of his trade arsenal. The lawsuits behind the ruling were brought by 5 small businesses and, here's a shock, a coalition of 12 Democratic-led states. Their case rested on a constitutional challenge that Congress, not the president, holds the power to impose tariffs and taxes, and that any delegation of such power must be explicit and limited. The outcome of the Supreme Court's decision, following the appeals court ruling, could well define the scope of presidential power to deploy levies as instruments of economic and national security policy. And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Monday, the 1st of September. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirstTV.com. Hopefully, you had a chance over this weekend to catch our latest episode of the PDB Situation Report. If not, well, you can find it and past episodes on our YouTube channel. You can find that, of course, on YouTube at President's Daily Brief and wherever you get your podcast stuff. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.